financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is tax problems. Solutions actually include Chapter 13. Brian Small, good morning.
Good morning, Ken.
So we got a bankruptcy guy.
We got a tax problem and a bankruptcy guy.
Jeffrey Linden.
Good morning, Ken.
The tax man.
Tax man.
James Samasco.
Happy to be here.
Elder law man.
Yep, happy to learn about this stuff.
Okay, so quick items. I hear enforcement is up on collection by the tax man. Is that correct?
That is correct. The IRS has woken up.
Can you do something about this, Jeff? Can you tell them to go back to
Can we
sleep?
put him back to sleep?
Maybe another pandemic might do it.
That's what put him to sleep.
That's
didn't
what
it?
put them to sleep. They're now waking up from COVID.
So how do you know that? What are you seeing?
You see a lot of these letters. They're called CP38 letters that are coming out that are reminding everybody, and they actually say in the letter, "Hey, we haven't been doing stuff for a while, but we were just, happy to tell you to remind you that you still owe us money, and we're going to start coming and getting it."
If you haven't gotten the letter yet, unfortunately, I can tell you, you can look forward to receiving it. We've obviously seen several of them for clients.
Yep.
And it is a unique letter because it's sent to you. It's not certified.
Nope.
It's not threatening.
Nope.
It's almost congenial, saying, things got kind of pushed to the side with COVID, but we're showing that you still owe the following. And then they there's a little chart, a little box in the middle of the letter showing the periods that they're looking for.
And for some people, it's a big box with a lot of periods.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big banner in big, thick, bold black letter with a large number right in the middle of the page.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is that letter giving you a deadline to respond, or how are they doing it, or is it the next letter that is going to become a more forceful process?
If you owe the IRS money, they always give you a 10-day deadline. It's built into every form that they send. They always tell you got to pay or call us within 10 days. Until they're getting really serious, and then those are the certified mail letters when they're threatening action. But every letter tells you have to pay.
If you call them, do they answer?
They do. We have a special number
Okay.
that we can get through a little bit better than you could. But they do answer. That's one of the things all the money went to, was to staff the call centers.
So you're getting
Stuff
better
like that.
responsiveness.
Yeah.
You don't call and get the message that says we're too busy, call back a different
The
day,
next
and it
business
just
day.
click.
Yeah, you
And
don't
then
have
it
to
hangs
sit.
up on
You
you,
don't
right?
sit on the phone for 3.5 hours
Yeah.
and then it hangs up on you anymore.
Right.
Well, the worst, that's the absolute worst. But the other one for a time during particularly COVID was you call and they basically say, sorry, we're too busy, and they just click.
And they just click.
But think of the background when that's happening. If you've got the tax problem and you're the taxpayer calling, not us who's representing you.
I tried to get a hold of you. Why'd you hang up on me?
But you don't just pick up the phone and call. When you get the letter, you have an anxiety attack.
Right.
You then go through this period of, what do I do? Should I call? And you work up to the point of having the nerve and the confidence to sit there and push those numbers.
And don't forget
and then
that
you get a message that says,
Before you get there, you've read the letter that's telling you
You got
you
10
have
days.
to pay us
In
by
10
this
days.
time, or bad stuff's going to start happening,
Yeah.
and then go.
and then the phone says, we're very sorry, but we're too busy to attend to your matter. Click.
Right.
And then you're sitting there, what am I supposed to do? Wait another 10 minutes and call back? It's insane.
Right.
But at least they're getting beyond that problem.
They're getting beyond that problem.
Okay. Let me just, before we get into the next one, let me say something that I think is critically important. You mentioned it gets to a point of a certified letter.
Yeah.
Listen to me carefully if you're watching this show, and convey this to those people that you talk to. When you get a certified letter, pick it up, open it, and read it. The notion of if I don't get it, I haven't received notice does not work.
No.
If they sent it to you, you've gotten it.
It's kind of like ducking the process server. They're going to get you no matter what.
It's worse than that because they've sent it to you and whatever clock they've set in that letter is ticking and it doesn't go off. It has no condition on whether you've read the letter or not. I always tell clients, whether it's a lawsuit, a creditor, the IRS, if somebody is aiming a rifle at you, you need to be aware of that so that you can move and get out of the way. And you won't know that unless you get the letter and open it and read it. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's going to be a letter that is, congratulations, you are the new winner of the lottery. It's, you get a certified letter, it's usually a problem, but you need to know what's coming at you, always. So do not ignore those, and particularly if it's from state of Michigan or IRS, because the clock is ticking regardless of whether you pick up the letter.
Right.
Okay, so what are the most common tax problems we're dealing with?
Unfiled returns.
Okay, so what's the solution to a person who has unfiled returns?
Wait. File them?
Yeah.
What a novelty.
So
Sometimes
unfiled returns
things are
are an
so
interesting
simple.
thing because people think like if I don't file, then they won't know and they won't come after me. But they don't remember. Most people earn their money and they get a paycheck with withholding. And they get a W-2. Or if they're a contractor, they get that 1099 at the end of the year. The IRS gets those. So the IRS knows for those people what you've earned. What they don't know is what you can legally deduct from your taxes. So eventually, they're going to just do your taxes for you in the way that's worse for you, and then they're going to start collecting against you. Plus, it's technically a crime to not file your taxes. So you have that.
And even
bubbling
if
out
they
there.
do your
and you got
taxes
penalties
for
and
you,
interest.
And you get
accumulated.
penalties and interest.
Yeah.
The non-filing penalty ramps up to its maximum within 5 months of the filing deadline.
Which is 25%.
And I have yet, in the years that we've been in practice, ever seen anybody fail to file their return who got it together within 5 months.
So it's an automatic 25%. Let's
Right.
take a break and we'll come right back.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
I was married for 57 years before my husband died.
Simasco Law had established a trust for them before this happened.
There's so much to do in the beginning, but after about a month, you're kind of alone.
We deal with estate planning and trusts every day.
If you continue to have good support and know that your finances and your estate is in order, that's one thing that's so comforting. I would just highly recommend Simasco Law.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Okay, so, Jim,
Yeah, I was wondering, we have clients come in that haven't filed tax returns in 20 years. What do you tell them?
File the returns.
Isn't that like
Do you have to
kicking,
file all 20?
kicking the horse?
No.
The dead dog? Isn't it?
It can be, but remember, if you're one of the two classes of filers that we mentioned, where you get reports, W-2s, 1099s, and the IRS has those, eventually the IRS will file what's called a substitute for return, which is your return for you, and that has consequences for you. One is they start collecting based on that calculation, which is never in your favor. And two, if bankruptcy is a solution to your problem,
never
it is not
dischargeable in bankruptcy.
It's never dischargeable in bankruptcy for the year that the government
Because
files the return.
even
Because they
if
filed
you-
the return for you.
Even if you go ahead and file your own return after the government's done a substitute for return, it may lower your tax liability, but the tax liability never becomes dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Which we'll
Also-
get to in a second of when they are dischargeable.
But
But do
also
you have
the
to go back
last thing-
20 years or what? What do you do?
No, usually it's 10 years is the zone, but it depends on everybody's individual. We have to look far back because it's
At their
everybody's
transcripts?
situation. But the other more critical thing is for me to help you in the ways we're about to get to. The key to that door is what's called compliance, which means filing the returns that haven't been filed. So if you don't file, then not only are you at risk of killing a bankruptcy option, which is often a very good option, but it also handcuffs our ability to get you into a relief program.
File your return.
Right.
Absolutely. And then the
File
thing
your
that
return.
what people don't realize is they're going to sit there and say, well, I don't have records. But when it comes to I don't have records, we can obtain the records that the government has
VAs.
of the income.
Yes.
And we know what your exemptions are. Those are easily determinable by a conversation. And if you have business expenses, like a Schedule C type of expenses, let's say you were a truck driver. This is, to me, the classic one. A truck driver automatically, by virtue of his business, has expenses. He has gas. He has maintenance on the trucks.
Insurance.
He has insurance. Even if you don't have those records, if all of your income is from 1099s from driving a truck, we can sit down and estimate the expenses based upon the revenue you received, the amount of travel you do, the number of days you're working, and estimate those expenses. IRS will never do that for you. We've also had audits where the client comes in, he went to the audit by himself, and he didn't have any documentation for all of his trucking expenses, and the auditor just denies all the expenses. Why? Because auditors do what auditors do. Now what the auditor then hands is he hands the person a document, results of examination, and he asks the taxpayer to sign it and consent to it. That's the critical moment that you need to know, do not sign.
that.
And then you come to us, and we can then appeal the decision. We can also file a tax court petition if necessary. It's the one way to contest the tax without paying it. And when you get into that level, they will approve the expenses. You can't just make up expenses that are unreal. You can't say, well, I had $150,000 of revenue, and it was a bad year. I had $149,500 of expense. That's not going to fly. But reasonable expenses will fly, and that's what you want to do. So the takeaway here is don't think, well, I don't have the records, I can't file the returns. We can estimate. The key is giving Jeff the tool to get you the right deal means we have to bring you into compliance.
Right.
And you should file the tax return even if you don't pay the tax?
Yes, there's still a penalty for non-payment, but the penalty for non-payment is only a quarter, or it's a 0.5% per month. And it also caps at 25%, but it's not a crime to file and not pay. And it takes about 4.5 years before you get to that cap.
Yeah, so if you
it's a
haven't filed
much
in, if
more
you haven't filed in
manageable
20,
pain.
if you haven't filed in 20 years, you've
You're-
got the
you're
25% late filing and you got the 25% late paying penalties. But you know, if your tax for one particular year is 0, let's go back to 5th grade math. 10 times 0 is
0.
0. So it's not necessarily that you are always in a penalty pay situation
And
for years that you don't have the income.
Right, because quite often it's not just the self-employed person that isn't filing their taxes. It's even the regular W-2 employee that hasn't filed their taxes.
Right.
And
They
quite
have
honestly,
withholding. Yeah.
they've had withholding coming out of their check. And the IRS will still file a substitute for return for you, and it will come out against you when we can file those taxes, get your reconsideration, and potentially reduce the tax liability. Again, if there is a tax liability at all and you have an SFR, it's not going to be dischargeable in bankruptcy. But there's a lot that can still be done.
Right, and there's what I'm referring to now is the hidden penalty is interest. So right now, interest compounds daily on taxes. It gets adjusted quarterly. Right now it's 8%. And you're paying interest on the taxes that you owed, if you owed, and all the penalties that accrued. So it's 8% plus everything.
So it could be
That's-
58% is really what it comes down to.
Yes.
25% penalty,
But
25% penalty, and 8%.
but don't get panicked at what the amount could be, because paying the tax, we have a lot of remedies to address that. You have to get in the game in order to get out of the game. And getting in the game is getting those returns filed, and then once we're in the game, then we can avail ourselves of the remedies to get out from the problem.
Exactly.
But doing that gets rid of the anxiety. If you haven't filed in 20 years, every time you're driving in the car and you hear one of those commercials about the IRS, I know your heart is skipping a beat, and you're saying you're driving the car, you're smiling, you got your best friend with you, and you're talking sports or something, and that commercial comes over. You don't say to your best friend, well, I haven't filed my taxes in 20 years. You just all of a sudden get quiet for a couple minutes, and you then go back to them and say, what did you say? I didn't hear you. That's because you have an anxiety attack. You need to get rid of that. Let's take a break, and then I want to flip over to Brian as to how does bankruptcy come into play in helping this.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We were just spinning. We just didn't know what was going to happen next.
At Samasco Law, we deal with these issues every day, especially elder law. Pat went to work for Fran.
Patrick was there holding my hand, kept saying, we'll get through this, we'll get through this.
He got her husband Medicaid and in a nursing home. Samasco Law got the success they deserved.
Samasco Law is definitely family to me. I really appreciate knowing all of you.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Samasco. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV Gross, Samasco Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV Gross today, 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem. As always, a great question came out of the break.
The question is, what happens to your Social Security benefits if you're not paying taxes?
So if you haven't paid and you get W-2s filed and the government has filed an SFR that we talked about, when you get to the point where they're taking action, which is a levy or a seizure of assets, they're going to seize immediately 15% of your Social Security payments.
You get a letter from them saying that's what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's what happens.
So you can't hide from them?
No. You also will, if you owe over a threshold and you travel, they will revoke your passport.
Which, all right, so, which is, we see that all the time, and that's a big one. And you can have, just if you have a liability over X amount, and you're not in a payment plan, they send you that letter saying do they revoke your passport, or do they do it?
They certify it to the State Department, and then it's up to the State Department, but they can revoke your passport, or they won't renew it, or they won't give you one if you don't have one.
Yeah, most often they won't renew it. But as simple as getting into some sort of payment plan with the IRS would allow you to get your passport back.
Yeah, even if we were able to determine that you're not collectible, which is an option, that will reverse the passport issue.
And in fact, filing a bankruptcy will also allow you to go get your
So
passport.
talk about when are taxes dischargeable in bankruptcy, or if they're not, how does Chapter 13 help?
So, assuming that you've filed your tax returns for at least 2 years, they've come due at least 3 years ago, and you haven't been assessed in the previous 8 months, your taxes are generally...
You were already assessed.
Yeah. Your taxes are generally dischargeable. Income taxes are generally dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Right. Employment taxes and payroll taxes are not. So if you're an employer and didn't pay your payroll taxes, then those taxes are not dischargeable in bankruptcy.
The problem comes up is when you go ahead and you haven't filed for years, and then you go ahead and file, get them all your ducks lined up, and now you want to file a bankruptcy. First, we have to wait 2 years. That assumes that the IRS hasn't filed that substitute for return. Because remember, it's never illegal to owe the government money. And so if you thought, oh my God, I'll hide my head in the sand and I won't file, they'll never find me, they're finding you because they'll file that tax return. The minute they've done that for you, you're no longer eligible to discharge those taxes in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You might be able to control them and pay them in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy over a 5-year stretch, and that opportunity may exist to also help you eliminate all of your credit card debt at the same time, because the only thing we're concerned about is paying the IRS. But at the end of the day, doing nothing is going to cause you a bigger problem than doing something.
So in a Chapter 13, how does that work?
So Chapter 13, let's start off with if your taxes are less than 3 years old, because there's a lot of people that suddenly owe a lot of money to the government.
Let's just say I'm filing a Chapter 13 because I've got an enormous amount of credit card debt, and I'm behind. I'm a couple months behind on my mortgage payment, and in addition to that, I haven't paid. I have a tax liability from 22 and 23.
So we'll catch the house up with Chapter 13. We'll pay the 22 and 23 tax liability to the detriment of Visa, MasterCard, hospital bills, and everybody else.
So let's say I have $150,000 of credit card debt. I have a $40,000 tax bill, and I'm $20,000 behind on my mortgage payment.
So for
And
$1,000 a month,
I
we're going
have-
to catch you up on your house. We're going to pay the taxes, and we're going to give the credit card companies zero.
That's a perfectly good deal. So if I'm understanding correctly, if you have a bunch of credit card debt and you file a Chapter 13, paying them is after you've paid off all of your taxes.
We pay the
so they get
most
nothing.
important creditor first.
Well, I'm the most important creditor.
Well, all right. Besides you, then it's the house, then the car, then the IRS in the state of Michigan, in that order.
So the car comes before the IRS?
Yes, secured debts get paid before what we call priority unsecured debts. A priority unsecured debt is a tax that came due less than 3 years ago.
If you don't, let's just say in that scenario, I want to keep my house. I don't want to necessarily keep my $700 a month car payment, and I'd like to get the taxes paid off. Can I get rid of the car?
Yeah, I can give back the car to the bank. You can
Well,
go
can I get rid of the car and get a $350 car payment?
Yes, if one exists, absolutely.
Well, I just would have to get a really small car, I guess. Nowadays.
Sometimes that's true, but
a motorcycle.
I have clients that drive motorcycles instead of buying cars.
Do they wear helmets?
God, I hope so. The bottom line is that there's lots of ways to manipulate the benefits of Chapter 13 to attack your tax problem, save your home, and get rid of your other debt. Just like there's lots of benefits and availability to deal with installment payment agreements or offers in compromise to get rid of your tax debt if that's your only problem. The one thing you never should do is hide your head in the sand and ignore the problem.
The other one, just the other takeaway here is, you go to the company that says we handle tax problems. They don't know and do bankruptcy, and they don't know if even bankruptcy can be a benefit to you. You need to have the comprehensive analysis. Do you have a final?
Yeah. Once you file Chapter 13, does your credit start getting better, or is it? Or are you just?
The answer is yes. Once you draw the line in the sand and put yourself in a position where your credit has the opportunity to get better, as long as you don't do anything to harm your credit again in the future, your credit score will go up, and it will go up rapidly.
And on that, it's a wrap. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.